Welcome to Friendeavor, the podcast, the weekly podcast where we explore the highs and lows of friendship with your hosts, Danielle and Kayla.
As we journey through life, our friendships often evolve and change, ebb and flow, and sometimes even come to an end. Danielle and I are lifelong advocates for the power of friendship, and we are here to guide all of us through the many challenges and joys that come with building and maintaining strong, meaningful connections with those around us.
Join us each week as we deep dive into the intricacies of friendship, from navigating conflicts to fostering new relationships and everything in between. With insightful interviews, personal anecdotes, and expert advice, Friendeavor is the perfect podcast for anyone looking to strengthen their bonds with the people they love.
So, whether you are on the go, taking care of chores, or just settling in, get ready to explore the world of friendship on Friendeavor, the podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Friendeavor, the podcast. My name is Danielle, and I am one of your hosts for Friendeavor, the podcast. My lovely co-host, Kayla, has got another event that she has to do tonight, so we are going to be a solo act, which for the first time, so this should be interesting. I'm not going to do probably too long of an episode, seeing as I am a solo act. However, this podcast is very important to me, and it's important that I'm able to get content out to you guys. So today we're going to be breaking down jealousy. This will probably be a reoccurring episode in the sense that there's a lot of things out there that need addressing. So as you may have seen from the title, the WWWWH of jealousy, that stands for the who, what, where, when, why, and how of jealousy. Specifically, we're talking about jealousy and envy. They're often used interchangeably, but we're going to go into what the distinct meanings of these are so that we have a clearer understanding. But yeah, basically I just want to break down this concept for us, and if this is something that you guys like, please leave us a review, a rating, shoot us an email if you like this style of episode. And we'll see if we can work it in the future. There are a lot of concepts that need breaking down. So yeah, we're just going to dive on in with the first one being jealousy. I think it's really important to understand the distinction between jealousy and envy. Firstly, let's just kick it off with defining them. So in simple terms, jealousy is when you have a fear of losing something that you possess, particularly losing it to another person. So you often see this in relationships. A woman is jealous of another woman in case, because she thinks that she might be trying to hone in on her relationship, or your possession. I'm jealous of my car, so I don't want anyone to use it because what if something happens to it? And if you perceive a threat to something that you possess or something that you own, or something that you take ownership of, even if it's not something that you physically own, like, relationship. Jealousy is where you find the fear of losing something that you love. Envy, on the other hand, is the desire for something that someone else has. So you're envious of someone else. They're usually like, oh, I'm jealous of them because they got this. What they're really feeling is envy. And whether it be an actual possession or like a quality that they have or an achievement, envy doesn't necessarily involve the fear of losing something that you own. It's longing for something that another person has. So one of the 10 commandments is thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife or oxen or all those things. It's talking about envy. So not being jealous of that person for having it, but being envious that, you don't have it and they do. When we're, the Bible talks about physical things like I said, the wife and the oxen and all that stuff. However, it can be like you're envious of the degrees that they got, or you're envious of the Christmas presents that they got, or you're envious of their success. You're like, what? We started out on the same path, the same career path, or the same journey, and they're progressing better than I am, or more quickly, and they found more success. Therefore, I am envious of them. So those are the definitions of jealousy and envy. I will be tonight kind of like, or today, however you're listening to it, I'm recording this at night, kind of using them interchangeably. It's basically, the episode is titled jealousy, but we're talking about both. So if you hear me say jealousy and I'm really talking about envy, well, hopefully with these definitions, you can interchange them for yourself. So we've kind of already set the stage for what jealousy is. And I'm sure the who, what, where, when, why, how aspects will kind of all be intermingled in this episode. But I'm going to try to keep them segmented into, definable areas. And if you are taking notes, maybe make yourself a chart that says who, what, where, when, why, how, and then plug in your note into whatever category you see fit. Because if you listen to this podcast for any length of time, you will hear that I kind of jump around a little bit as thoughts occur, or, it's just different. So, as we talked about, we kind of already established what envy and jealousy are, and now we're going to move into how we see them portrayed, or who we see them portrayed in. So, the Bible is filled with examples of jealousy and envy. It starts all the way back to the first family, Cain and Abel. One of the most famous examples of envy and jealousy played out is right at the beginning, and it had a horrific ending to it. As you may know, Cain and Abel brought their sacrifices unto God. Cain's sacrifice was rejected because it was not his first fruits. It wasn't the highest quality that he could give God. And Abel got the blessing that comes with sacrifice. And so Cain, in a jealous, envious rage, kills Abel because he got, God's attention where Cain did not. And so in this first example, we see jealousy played out, or envy played out, as I want your blessing because I did not produce something good. So it's kind of like an instance of blame. Like, instead of blaming himself, instead of Cain blaming himself, saying, oh, I didn't do enough, so therefore I will do better next time. He's like, oh, you've got it better than me. He likes you more than I do, so therefore let me just eliminate what I think the problem is in the moment. That being said, jealousy is a universal emotion. I mean, it literally goes back to the dawn of mankind. So if it affected the first family back when they didn't have sin had entered the world at that point. Obviously, Adam and Eve had fallen at that point, but, the same access to sins like we do now, if that kind of jealousy and envy is affecting the first people of humanity back then, how much more are we prone to it now? It's a human nature. It affects us all. Jealousy can affect anyone. It can affect obviously yourself. It can affect your friends, your if you have a spouse or a boyfriend or girlfriend, your colleagues. How many times have we heard stories about people taking down other people on the corporate ladder because they want that position? They're envious of the promotion. They want it for themselves, or they're jealous of the things that they have. Like, oh, Joe is coming after my job, so I need to squash him in order to protect what I have. So to identify individuals who may experience jealousy, you're looking at pretty much all of humanity. Even people who are filled with the Holy Ghost can be tempted to be jealous. I mean, it's part of human nature. So what is the point in discussing humanity? Discussing jealousy? What's the why? Well, because understanding jealousy is crucial because it allows you to navigate its impacts on relationships, personal growth, and even your spirituality. If you don't have an understanding of the trials and things that you could run into and the things that you face, you're going to be unequipped to deal with them effectively. When these situations arise, so it kind of moves in from the who and the when in this situation kind of go together, because it's an abstract concept. Jealousy, it's not like something concrete that you can hold in your hand. It's an abstract thought or emotion. The who and the when, like I said, kind of go together. So who is the person who's defending their job when an opportunity arises for someone to take it from them, or a perceived threat is at hand, which leads us to the why. Okay. At its core, it comes from the perceived threat. You hold something dear, like we said, a relationship or a possession or a status. In many cases, jealousy is a result of like deeply rooted insecurities or maybe past experiences. So like a person experiences something of loss early on, and they carry that weight with them. And so when they feel the situation arising again that they're going to lose something, then it comes out even stronger, and maybe a betrayal or a loss has shaped their perception of their current situation, their current relationship, or the things that they currently own. And the emotional baggage from these experiences can amplify the intensity of jealousy. Um, Making a mountain out of a molehill, distorting the reality of the situation. The the way jealousy presents itself, it's diverse, subtle expressions of like, oh, that must be nice, I wish I had that, all the way to like, no, that's mine. Um, and before people are able to regulate their emotions, like toddlers, they'll be like, mine, 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 because all they think of, oh no, someone is taking something from me and I may never get it back. Um, and it's also amplified. Another version of the how or the why is in this age of social media where every person, including myself, has a platform to say things. Comparisons are available just like that. Click of a button, you get on Instagram, you get on Twitter, you get on even Pinterest, a Pinterest place that your personal interest, the place where you cultivate ideas for yourself. Jealousy and envy can be exacerbated because of the curation of other people's lives. Oh, your friend is in Europe. Well, did you see how hard they worked to be able to afford that trip to Europe? Did you see what they forewent, what they avoided getting? How many Starbucks or how many times they avoided going out with their friends so they could save that money and sock it away for that Europe trip? No, you don't see that work and you don't see that effort that is not portrayed on social media where the actual event is portrayed. I know of someone who regularly deletes their Instagram for a lot of reasons, or maybe not deletes, but just goes off of Instagram because of the constant portrayal of idealized lives, or maybe they're spending too much time or whatever. But the positive thing of that is that they have a self-perception and a recognition that, hey, this is not good for me. I've been spending too much time wishing I had what other people had, and I need to focus on what I need to accomplish for myself. And a little bit later on, we're going to go into how you combat jealousy, but let me just go ahead and jump to the end here and say, the Bible says, count your blessings and take stock of your days. Teach me to number my days and be appreciative for what you have in the moment. Even if it comes down to like physical acts of writing out lists of, Lord, I'm thankful for this today. God, you've blessed me with this today. I know that I would not be here without your hand. And yes, they may be experiencing these blessings right now, but I know what you have for me is going to match or exceed what I see. And not because I deserve it so much more, or, the windows of heaven are opened up more for other people, but because God genuinely wants to bless people. We hear about it all the time of how, blessing pours out. But in the meantime, when you're in the waiting period, jealousy and envy can cause damage and wreak havoc on your life and on your relationships if you don't know how to rein it in. And I did say I jumped ahead of myself, and I very much jumped ahead of myself. So let's go back up and go back into our who, what, where, when, why, and how. We're still kind of in the why area. So jealousy's impact, it extends beyond the individual. If you're sitting there thinking, wow, must be nice, but you constantly dwell on that, how much is it affecting your family or your friendships? If I can get vulnerable for a second, I wouldn't. Jealousy is not something that I struggle with on the daily, or envy, whatever you want to call it, but it's something that I worked through when I was younger. We would compare Christmas presents when we were kids, and oh, they got this, crazy gift and whatever. And my parents give amazing gifts. That's not what this is about. But as a kid, anytime your friend gets like a four-wheeler, you're like, oh my gosh, you guys are rich. Well, come to find out, when I'm older, some people are in like these desperate financial situations because they spend ridiculous amounts of money on that kind of stuff. But I had no recognition of that as a kid. So before I knew how to regulate those emotions and had the grown-up knowledge to understand of, oh, they spent $3,000 per kid on Christmas presents, that's probably not the wisest financial decision in their state. Then it was affecting me and affecting how I looked at my friends and their families. So the impact of envy went beyond just myself, and it bred resentment, and it can undermine your collaboration. Say you and your friend have this idea together, but you think that they should be giving more to this idea than you should because they're quote unquote in the position to do to. That's competition. That's envy. That's it destroys innovation. It destroys what you can achieve. Um and like it's not about competition, it's about collaboration. I don't know if I'm going off on a tangent right now, but I'm just like, don't limit yourself to what God has for you because you're worried you're not getting your fair share in the moment. There's a lot to be said about healthy competition and healthy goal setting based off of other people's success and stuff like that. And I'm not talking about, you know, you shouldn't set good goals because you would be afraid that someone would think that you're envious of other people. That's a whole other topic, and that would be taking what I'm saying out of context. But if you look at biblical examples, Cain did not see Abel's sacrifice as a wake up call to say, oh, okay, I know I cut this corner here, and to get that blessing, I need to not cut corners. I need to bring my first effort. Instead of that motivating him to be better, he decided to eliminate the competition, which had disastrous results, as we know. So, healthy competition, or it's not even competition, but like I said, the self-reflection, the wake-up call, you could use other people's success that you are envious of to help fuel your own desire to be better. Not to be better than them necessarily, but to make yourself better for the calling at hand. What has God called you to be? And if you listen to our identity episode last week, we talked about how in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, it gives an extensive breakdown of the body of Christ and how people should not have the authority to dictate to you how your importance or what your importance is in the body. Neither should you be jealous or dictate someone else's importance in the body. If you're like, oh man, they get to be the hand of the body and they're out there, reaching for people on the foreign mission field, or they actually get to go and preach and, be the voice of God or whatever. And I want that. But for right now, I'm just the person who's stuck in the church and just, regulating the whatever of the body. And I'm just the one who is up there helping the saints when I'm only the one. I'm just helping the body. I'm just to help. Instead of being like, oh, they get that and I don't have to be that. What are the gifts and talents that you can expand on right now that God can use in a different part of the body? Jealousy and envy limit you to what you perceive that you want. So what I mean by that is you think you want what so-and-so has, but you limit yourself in knowing what God could have for you or what life could, quote unquote, throw your way. Everything comes from God. So like everything is, I don't want to say like, oh, the universe would give you opportunities. No, it's not the universe, but I hope you understand that life presents interesting opportunities, and I hope I don't have to break all that down. But to provide a personal example, when I was in 5th grade, I moved schools. So my family moved to a different city, and it was halfway through 5th grade. And so these kids, I mean, when you live in small town USA, which I did for most of my life until I turned 16, you are around the same people all the time. You grow up with the same people. You're in the same grades. It's it's just kind of how it is. So halfway through 5th grade, I moved schools. These kids had been together their whole lives, and the drill. So I get to 5th grade, and girls at 5th, 6th, 7th grade, they're just different. Okay. They're just different. So I get there, and there's this girl who's in my class, and we hit it off. And it's really nice. She's an apostolic, which is incredible. That's something you don't see a whole lot in public schools. And as someone who was transitioning into this public school, to have an apostolic person who was willing to be my friend was huge. Well, she had another friend. And keep in mind, this is 5th grade, people. So I'm not trying to put more on this than it is, but it is an example of envy and jealousy in action. Specifically jealousy in this case. So the girl that I became friends with, she had another friend who did not like me because she perceived that her relationship was being I was taking her spot as this girl's best friend. When you're in 5th grade, you don't really have a perception of a best friend can be more than one person, like we talk about on the friendship pyramid. So she just, she didn't like me, and you don't have to like everyone. That's fine. I mean, you should try to make friends with as many people as you can. But again, 5th grade. So she's jealous of her friendship, thinking that, hey, someone is coming and taking my place in this relationship. As life moves on, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, all the way up to 9th grade, this girl and I had very similar last names. So mine started with A, her started with B. And so therefore on the roster, that was another thing, which is very 5th grade, is that I became the number one kid in the class because my last name was Anderson and then her last name was B. And so she got demoted. Again, I don't know how to stress to you that it was 5th grade without, saying it like that, because all this stuff is so inconsequential. But so all the way up through into high school, it turns out our lockers are right next to each other because, A and B. And we developed a relationship at our lockers between classes over the next, 3 or 4 years that we did not have in 5th grade. And we ended up becoming closer friends, me and the girl who was jealous of her friendship in 5th grade because of proximity. And so she was threatened at that level. And over time and space and all that kind of stuff, the where of jealousy in that 5th grade classroom evolved into the where of our lockers, which overcame that jealousy. And we ended up becoming friends and didn't really even hang out with that girl anymore. So if you could pull anything from that very, very nominal, ridiculous example, is that time and awareness can heal a lot of the effects of jealousy as long as you are putting in the effort to overcome it. It's not, there are different ranges. Obviously, if it's something that has to do with your marriage and there's an actual literal threat there, then you need to fight tooth and nail to the death to save your marriage. But if it's 2 5th grade girls fighting over the same friend, I mean, be aware of the situation and dedicate time to work through that. Maybe dedicate some space. It was just happenstance that our lockers happened to be next to each other, but it ended up working out. All right. So how do you overcome jealousy? How do you navigate envy? This is where it boils down to the applicable bit. And we've already mentioned some of these, so if I go a little bit faster through them, you'll know why, because we've already talked about them. But self-reflection. This is number 1. Take time to understand the root causes of your jealousy or envy. Okay? Is it the emotional baggage piece, like I mentioned? Is it because you went your whole life not getting something and then they got it without even trying? Reflect on past experiences that may have contributed to these feelings. It's typically that one that I just mentioned, someone getting something for nothing that you have tried to get for a long time. Maybe it's a scholarship, maybe it's a property, maybe it's a physical, an iPad or something like that. Take time to understand it, because if you don't know where it stems from, it's going to be really hard to work through it. Number 2, practice gratitude. Count your blessings. Actually focus, spend dedicated time focusing on the positive aspects of your own life. Express gratitude, out loud. Thank you, Lord, for what you've given me today. Thank you, Lord, for this. Express gratitude for the things that you had, acknowledging what you've accomplished, the blessings that you received. It doesn't just have to be physical things. It could be, God, thank you for bringing me to this point in my job. I know I couldn't have done this without you. And I put this in the, I can't remember which episode it was, but I was talking about how I spent time in dedicated prayer to get out of a not great work situation. And within 1 week, God answered my prayer. I am still grateful for that. I am 7 years removed from that job. Actually, 7 years this month removed from that job experience. And I still think of it from time to time because it's a landmark event of how God saw me through a situation. So practicing gratitude is not something that has to be only when you're jealous. It can be just a regular occurrence of wow, you made a way then, and I know you can make a way now. In the same lane of practicing gratitude, number 3, like mindfulness and meditation. My mom is a therapist and she's really huge on mindfulness. Um, it really just helps you bring that awareness to your understanding. Like if you know the why and you know how to navigate it, like if it's regularly on your mind that I'm going to work through this, not regularly on your mind of dwelling on what you don't have, but how you're going to achieve it. It'll shake off the dreariness of jealousy, the dreariness of envy, because focusing on how you're going to overcome is going to be the building block of how you actually will overcome those instances of envy and jealousy. Number 4, if this is something that applies to you, some people it does, some people it doesn't. Limit social media exposure. So if you find yourself envious when you see certain people's content, just go through a little season where you reduce the time spent on social media or unfollow those accounts. Because the constant exposure to others, whether it's totally organic or more likely curated lives, it's going to brew those instances of inadequacy that are the causes of jealousy and envy. So, like we've mentioned before, people share the highlights. They're not the full story. So whether it's a positive full story or a negative full story, either way, you're not seeing the full story. So if social media exposure is something that brings you down, go through a season of taking a break. And side note, you don't need to announce your social media breaks. If someone misses you that badly on there, they'll text you. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not into the whole announcing your social media breaks because like that kind of defeats the purpose, especially if you announce a break and then you're on the next day. I saw someone who announced this huge old post about going on a break, and the next day they deleted the account that they posted that from and started a new account. So that was just a side note for free. Number 5. Number 5 is tough because it has to do with communication and anything that's like a weakness. So if you perceive your instances of envy or jealousy as a weakness, you're not really going to want to talk about it. But in the event that you are jealous of someone, like honing in on your relationship, communication, which is tip number 5, you got to tell the person that you're in the situation with. So like we're a friendship channel, so we're going to talk about friendship. We're not going to talk about marriages because that's outside of our scope of practice. But if person A and person B have a very solid friendship and person C is not just trying to become friends with you, like, if they actually just want to be friendly, if they're actively trying to disrupt your friendship, you got to communicate with friend A about how you're feeling. Okay. And then it'll help you to determine either if it's just a perceived threat or an actual threat. And it will help you navigate that instance together, because discussing concerns and fears will foster those the understanding between. If you don't tell your friend how you're feeling, they can't read your mind. They're not a mind reader. So if you actually express how you're feeling through communication, I think you'll be able to navigate that instance in your relationship better and ultimately strengthen your trust in the process. Number 6, when it comes to dealing with jealousy and envy, work on building your own self-esteem. Okay, your own self-esteem, your own self-worth. Recognize that you have unique qualities too, that you have unique accomplishments, that you own things that maybe other people, like if it's a materialism jealousy, what is something that is going to reinforce a positive self-image instead of saying, "Oh, woe is me." Like, no, I don't own a Maserati, but I do own a very reliable, nice car that God dropped in my lap and blessed me with after years of having janky cars. I don't need a Maserati. I am so grateful. Like, I regularly express gratitude. I don't experience jealousy for as far as automobiles. I'm not saying that to like laud myself, but the fact that I take not pride, but like gratitude in this physical thing that I own really helps me realize, like I am so blessed. And I know that I am worth more than just issues with my with my vehicles. I can, and it doesn't have to just be physical things. Like I said, find something that will improve your self-worth. Like, hey, I'm good at this. I'm good at that. No, I may not have the position that this person has, and therefore, I struggle with envy that, oh, I don't get to be the lead worship leader at my church, but I still sing good and I'm still a faithful choir member. And over time, it's not my effort that's going to be rewarded. It's going to be my dedication to the kingdom that's going to be recognized. So build the self-esteem that you need to navigate instances of jealousy and envy right now. Okay, number 7. If you struggle with envy over let's just say envy, not jealousy. So envy you perceive, it's not jealousy as in that you perceive things about yourself, that it's stuff that you want. Envy is when you want stuff that other people have. So if you struggle with envy, this is number 7, set realistic goals for how you want to achieve. Maybe it's that level of success or an actual achievement, like a milestone celebration, or you want to procure the item that you are envious that someone else has. So establish the achievable and realistic personal goals. Don't set goals for other people. Like, okay, I hope that they fall flat on their face in the next 6 years. No. Set a goal for yourself of how you are going to grow and how you are going to progress to get to that place instead of comparing yourself to others. It's really easy to say, woe is me. It's harder to get yourself in gear to try to accomplish that yourself. But if you actually want to get out of your state of envy, if you actually want to become what other people are or what other people have, set goals for yourself. Realistic goals, SMART goals. SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable. I think it's realistic, and T is timeline. So like a specific goal. You have to know exactly what you want. It's not like, oh, I want to be a better person. No, you have to say how you want to be a better person. Make it specific, make it measurable. Okay, within 1 year, I want to have saved $1,000. Okay, that's measurable. 1 year. Attainable. Do you have a job? If you don't have a job, how are you going to save money? Is that attainable for you? Okay. Realistic. That means, is it accurate to your situation? Do you have income of $5,000 a month, but your expenses are $6,000 a month? Then $1,000 is probably not super realistic for you at the moment until you switch your income to debt ratio. Okay. Also not a financial thing, but I'm just using that as an example for a smart goal. So attainable, realistic, and then T, timeline. Set a timeline for yourself. Okay. $1,000 in a year, split that into 1,000, or let's say 1,200. Take your 1,200, split it into 12 months. Okay, I need to save $100 a month in order to save that $1,000. Boom, that is a SMART goal. It is specific, it is measurable, it is attainable, it is realistic, and it is a timeline. I think I may have said achievable, but it's attainable. I don't know. I'd have to go back and listen to what I just said. But all that to say, set a realistic goal of how you want to overcome this instance, or not only overcome, but get to the point where you have personal success and you're not being envious of what other people have. Which leads us into number 8, is celebrating other successes. There is nothing more humbling than forcing yourself to be happy for someone that you're not actually happy for. If this person got a promotion, you force your spirit and you force your attitude to be happy for them. And by shifting your perspective from a woe is me to a celebration, it's gonna alleviate that. It's like squishing down the sinful man within you and making the spiritual person rise up and be positive. My dad was the most annoying person about this growing up, because he wanted to be happy for people even if we didn't like them, because he's very, he's got a great walk with God, and he's a great man, but he would be happy for people that I would not want him to be happy for. And so, but you know what? He is a successful man and he's got a great outlook on life. And so he shifted his perspective, which trained his brain and trained his spirit to be happy for people, rejoice with them that rejoice. Um, and then in time, he achieved his own things, he never. I, I never know of a time that he struggled with envy, and so if that worked for him, how much more can I say that it would work for me if it's because I saw it in action. All right, number 10. To overcome jealousy and envy, seek support, seek counsel, talk to your pastor, talk to trusted friends, not the friends that are going to just agree with you just because they just, want to agree with you. Talk to your parents, talk to older siblings or a therapist, like a counselor, a mentor, about what you're feeling. And one of those people, if they were interested in helping you, they would try to get to the reason why you're feeling it. So getting support will really help you navigate what you're feeling if they're, a trusted mentor. If they're just trying to gas you up and be like, oh yeah, you definitely deserve that because they don't, that's not going to be helpful. But getting that different perspective can be huge and provide like invaluable insight into why you're feeling that way, or if you even should be feeling that way. Like, what if you talk to someone, a mentor, about, oh yeah, my friend, they get all these things because, they get 2 phones and 2 rooms and whatever, and then you come to find out, oh, well, their parents are divorced. And this is kind of like a juvenile example, and there's, I'm talking to adults too, but basically to give you a different perspective. Well, yeah, their parents are divorced. So do you want your parents to be divorced too, so you can get 2 cell phones and 2 bedrooms and 2 whatever? Okay, get that invaluable insight. Not only will you get support from other people to navigate that, but you might get encouragement. Like, hey, I know that this is something you struggle with, but I believe in you and I know you can do it, and I'll be your accountability partner. Anytime you find yourself, in a jealous situation or you're envious of someone, shoot me a text and we'll talk about it and we'll navigate it together because I am here for you. Learn from those people. If they have an example of how they overcame jealousy or overcame envy, who are you to dismiss it? Learn from those role models, learn from those mentors. Let them inspire you if they are someone who's worth listening to. Instead of feeling envious, use their success. Like if they have more success than you and you even find yourself envious of your mentor, let their success motivate you and be a source of guidance instead of a source of jealousy or envy. Overcoming jealousy and envy, basically what this all boils down to is that it is a process. It doesn't have to be a super lengthy process. It can be something that you can be delivered from tonight. Like it doesn't have to be something that it takes you years to get through. It might, but if you incorporate some of these strategies and prayer and fasting and taking it to God, it's just going to make your life healthier. It's going to make your life happier. It's going to bring joy. If you've let joy eke out of your ears because of eke out of your left ear because you let envy and jealousy and conversation that you shouldn't hear enter into your right ear, well, you know what? Prayer and fasting and dedicated time spent with God and listening to spiritual leaders that are trusted, that you can, not someone that you perceive to be a spiritual leader just because they're older, but an actual pastor or youth pastor or parent or mentor that is going to be a support to you. That is how you get through jealousy, and that is how you get through envy. And this episode, the who, what, where, when, why, and how of jealousy, it's convoluted. These concepts are convoluted, and I tried to break it down so that it's in more manageable chunks. But to review, who can jealousy affect? Anybody. We are all fallen. And since the dawn of mankind at Cain and Abel, you see it played out. You see it in Saul's jealousy of David. David is being raised up and he's been anointed as king, and Saul feels threatened and he feels jealous. Oh, someone's going to take my kingdom. Oh no, he's not thinking about what he did to deserved. He's not thinking about what he did to deserve to lose his kingdom. He's thinking, oh no, someone's coming and they're trying to take what's mine. You see it played out there. And he's jealous of his kingdom, which is not his kingdom, it's God's people. And yes, Saul was anointed, but he lost his anointing when he disobeyed. You see jealousy played out in Jacob's 12 children, Israel's 12 children, where these brothers are envious of what their brother has, the coat, the favor that is portrayed, that's given to him by their father. They sell him into slavery because they're like, okay, this is how we get rid of this problem. You see it in you see jealousy in the priests that hand Jesus over to be crucified, and obviously that is a little bit different because it was part of the master plan, of salvation. But through all these instances of jealousy, we get to the part of the Bible in Corinthians, where Paul writes to the Corinthians about love. And I'm gonna read this passage from the NIV because I wanted to. The KJV says charity, but for our purposes, I wanted to say love. So, 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4: love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. Jealousy and envy are literally self-seeking. So love is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrong. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with truth. If the person you're jealous of falls, it doesn't say, oh, finally, okay, they have fallen. All of their stuff is to be divvied up like spoils, like in Monopoly. If someone goes bankrupt, okay, we get all their properties and they're gone. No. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always preserves. Love never fails. It does not envy. So if you truly love someone, you truly love your friend, which you should, because you should love people, but an envious heart needs to spend time learning and praying for love. So the who does it affect? Basically everyone. What does it affect? It can affect your physical belongings, it can affect your spirit, where it can happen in any instance that you allow it to happen. It can happen in the church if you're not careful, if it can happen in your family, if you allow it, it can happen in your workplace. It's not limited. I mean, it happened right outside the Garden of Eden, right outside of paradise. It happens wherever you allow it to happen. When does it happen? Well, whenever you let your guard down, whenever you allow the old man, as it were, your flesh get in the way of your spirit, and you let it take over. Why does it happen? Well, we live in a world of sin, and we live in a world of constant influence, trying to separate us from the love of God. So why does it happen? Because we're not to heaven yet. There will be no jealousy, no envy in heaven. So that's why it happens. How? Any number of instances. It's not limited to a certain example, but all in all, it can be overcome. It can be worked through, and it's a part of life. So it's not something that you should just excuse of like, oh, well, I'm human, so therefore I get jealous. No, you still got to work on it. But when it comes to friendships, if you don't work on it, it can absolutely rob you of your friendships and of your relationships. And no one wants that. Everyone wants healthy, happy relationships with the people they love. Thank you so much for stopping by Friendeavor the podcast this week. I hope I did this solo episode justice. I know I missed my co-host, and she'll be back. She'll be back next week. But in the meantime, I wanted to make sure that we had the content out for you. And if you like the WWWWH episodes, let us know, because this one was always slated for this season. But if you want it broken down in different things, or if you have ideas, the devotional is kind of our guide for that. The devotional Bible studies that you can find on our website, including the digital downloads. These abstract concepts that you can't hold in your hand but are so, so important is you just got to shine a light on them. And you got to spend dedicated time studying them so you can appreciate the instances where they come up and you'll know how to navigate them. Thank you so much for stopping by this week. Don't forget to leave us a review, a rating, shoot us an email if you've got a question, comment, or concern. We'd love to hear from you. And yeah, we'll see you next week on Friendeavor the podcast. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Friendeavor the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoyed today's content, leave a review and share with a friend. You can find the show notes on our website, www.friendeavor.net, and in the description of this episode.
Friendship is a journey. It's an endeavor. We'll see you next time on Friendeavor.